Good morning on this Sunday, March 3rd, and welcome to the Georgia Gang. The suspect in the death of Laken Riley sparks fierce debate over immigration policies in Georgia and at the U.S. southern border. Also, the soap opera continues at the Fulton County Courthouse as a key witness decides not to confirm what he said in text messages about when DA Fonnie Willis and a special prosecutor started their romantic relationship. And the city of Atlanta starts to crack down on homeless encampments, moving folks to the former Atlanta Medical Center. Melita, Phil, and Martha are all here. Alicia Thomas-Searcy is filling in, and discussion begin right now.
From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia Gang starts now.
Explosive moments as the mayor of Athens, Clarke County, tried to explain safety enhancements in response to the death of 22-year-old Laken Riley. Protesters said they're angry that Athens appears to be a sanctuary city. Meanwhile, Governor Brian Kemp is calling out the Biden administration over his immigration policies and is demanding answers.
I mean, this is a federal issue. This is an issue that the president can take action on. Let's secure our border and make sure this doesn't happen again.
Governor Brian Kemp is demanding answers from the White House following the killing of nursing student Laken Riley. The alleged murderer, 26-year-old Jose Ibarra, was arrested for the crime near Lake Herrick on UGA's campus. Investigators say Ibarra crossed the Texas border illegally in September of 2022. Authorities say he was put on a bus to New York City, where he was arrested and later set free, making his way down to Georgia.
We are deeply sorry for this tragedy. The responsibility for this crime rests solely upon the perpetrator.
Heated moments in the city of Athens Wednesday as Mayor Kelly Girtz attempted to unveil a safety plan.
Resign now! Resign.
City leaders face heavy criticism of a perceived sanctuary city status after the city council passed a resolution in 2019 welcoming immigrants of all statuses. Mayor Girtz says the resolution was put in place during the Trump presidency after rhetoric he says was harmful. The mayor says Georgia does not allow for sanctuary cities and no policies have been adopted by the mayor or commission to create a sanctuary city status. Critics aren't convinced.
We're listed on the Center for Immigration Studies as a sanctuary city. So how can you tell me we're not? And even if we are not, if we're listed that way, people are going to come here.
Obviously, lots to talk about on this issue. Emotions, as you could see, very raw. Martha, there is a lot of justified anger over the murder of this beautiful young woman.
No doubt about it. I mean, it's the worst nightmare. Now that more and more details have come out, it's even more horrible than we thought. Her funeral was on Friday, I think a lot of these things were in the works already. These bills that were in the works already, but there was a more of a hurried tone to it that happened over on crossover day with a number of these. But we also want to be sure that we should not do a broad brush of the entire Hispanic community. The Hispanic community has been a part of Georgia, a part of both of our parties for 30 years or so, and they are here legally. What we're talking about is illegal immigration. There were at least 4 instances where this person interacted with the law and could have been removed from this country, and he was not, and as a result of that, this woman died.
Alicia, Georgia lawmakers banned sanctuary cities across the state, but some local authorities in several cities run really by Democrats, well, they can limit their cooperation with federal immigration officials, and that's what a lot of the critics are pointing to.
First of all, I appreciate what Martha said about Hispanics being a part of our state and a part of our communities. And of course, my deepest condolences to the family of Laken and her friends. It was so hard to watch those young people, how sad they are by this tragic loss. But, I have to say that the politicization of this issue is really frustrating for me. Yes, there are counties and cities who have said we are not going to participate really in the politics of getting into immigration. My husband is a former state trooper. You all know that. They go through 4 weeks of training. Immigration is not one of the things they get trained on. When I reach out to my friends in law enforcement, they are frustrated and frankly concerned about not only this attempt to enforce not having sanctuary cities, but some of these other bills that have been introduced, a couple of those pieces that passed last night that go well beyond the pale of a state getting involved in immigration. I want to remind people again that in our U.S. Senate, there was a bipartisan bill that very well could have passed, but the lawless former president sent a tweet, and all of a sudden it's over. And so we need to leave immigration law to the federal government. I'm frustrated that we are now wanting our local police officers and state troopers, some of these bills give them they are empowering them to stop people, right, based on the suspicion if they are not from this country. And let me say this very quickly. There are 5 of us sitting on this dais. There's only one of us sitting here that if I'm driving, I've got to be concerned if I'm going to be suspected if I'm here illegally. That's a problem, and those are the kind of policies that we need to stop. It's the politics that's bothering me. Focus on safety for everybody. Focus on the 100 Georgians that were killed by gun violence this year in Georgia, 10 of those kids. Don't just use this one issue, this one murder, to all of a sudden be so concerned about safety and then decide that you want to take immigration law in your own hands.
But there is one issue, maybe Phil or Martha, you want to chime in here. There is an issue where they're not asking the local authorities to become involved in immigration. They're asking wait until ICE can come get them if they are accused of a crime.
Let me
Well,
read.
that's
Hold
right.
on. Let me read what the law, what
You've
the
been
bill.
filibustering the whole time.
Let
I'm
Phil-
not filibustering. I'm
Alicia.
talking about an issue that's very important. But in the bill,
Alicia, hold on. I would
Okay.
like Phil to answer first.
Okay.
Well, let's look at the bigger picture here. We had in the package the mayor of Athens claiming it's not a sanctuary city. It's very clear in the Georgia Code what the definition of a sanctuary city is. And basically, you're making a good point, Lori. Once that you have somebody in your jail, you have to go to the feds, and there's a detainer. This is not being done in Athens, so the Athens mayor is just a clueless liberal liar. That's my opinion. I don't know why he keeps saying this. The whole thing with Blake and Riley is it could have never happened if we didn't have this open borders policy by an increasingly senile president who is surrounded by open border advisors. This is a 50-state problem. Georgia is affected. We have the rule of law here. I'm tired of Democrats that just try to undermine the rule of law here. We have an illegal immigrant crime wave here, and I think that that's why we had these bills, Martha. We had the sanctuary city bills. It's illegal to have these jurisdictions, and yet there was no enforcement. So I'm glad that we finally are getting some teeth in this.
And I do want to talk about the opinion piece that was written by Georgia Insurance Commissioner John King. He's well respected on both sides of the aisle and is uniquely qualified to speak on the issue. So he was born in Mexico. He came here legally when he was 17, served in law enforcement, served in the National Guard, and he says, and I quote, "It also goes without saying that we must do more to end sanctuary cities and we must vote out the lunatics who support them," unquote. Now he's calling on Georgia lawmakers to pass a bill that prohibits any illegal immigrant convicted of a violent crime from ever getting bond. Melita.
Well, I think that particular point, someone convicted of a crime who is here illegally not getting bond, is something that both sides of the aisle could agree upon. The thing is, this suspect in Athens was stopped in another state and let go. It was not a failure of policies locally which put him back on the street. So we need to remember that. The other thing that I think is absolutely, we send our condolences to the UGA family. They were already reeling from the death of another student, not by nefarious activities, when they learned of this co-ed's death. And I think that UGA needs to be congratulated for really stepping up the safety measures they're putting in place on that campus. Dan Silk, the VP for Public Safety, outlined a number of measures that they're doing, and so they're to be congratulated for that. And then I think, in defense of the mayor of Athens, he also said at that press conference that you shouldn't conflate immigration and crime, and he says the two are not connected, and that crime in Athens is not solely, and it's down.
Look, I just want to quickly make a point that I appreciate what you said, but the problem is there has been a bill that was passed on the House side 14 months ago, House Bill 2. It's been sitting waiting to be taken up by the Senate. If this was a functioning House and Senate, and I'm criticizing Democrats and Republicans here, if this was a functioning House and Senate, U.S. Senate, if this was functioning, what they would do is they said House Bill 2 was dead on arrival. So they're playing the same game that Mike Johnson is playing. So what they should do if they were smart is they would bring up House Bill 2, they would put an amendment that had those compromises in it, they would pass it on the Senate side, and then they would force a conference committee. But neither side want that. Neither side. Your side doesn't want it, and my side doesn't want it, because they're not willing to actually take up bills that have been passed.
Alicia.
So we can agree to disagree on that. I think Democrats have had a long history of working on this issue and trying to fix it. I think Republicans are playing politics at the federal level and the state level. I want to read very carefully what one of these bills that passed last night says. The first time a jailer or sheriff fails to keep track of data on inmates who are not U.S. citizens, including their immigration status and country of origin, is considered a violation of oath of office. The second offense and thereafter would be a misdemeanor of high and aggravated nature. It goes on to talk about another bill, I'm not sure if that one was passed, but it would permit peace officers, including state troopers, to arrest with probable cause any person suspected of being in the country illegally. That is what I'm talking about. This isn't filibustering. This is putting our law enforcement officers in danger. It's making them become immigration officers. Let me finish. And doing something they are not trained to do. Jails are already overcrowded. We have a number of issues in our jails, and now Republicans who are making this issue political only because it's an election, not because they care about the lives that are being lost, not because they care about actually doing something to keep people safe, but because this is the perfect political opportunity to score political points. And that's what's frustrating to me. And this is not my opinion. This is what is in the law, or what is being proposed in the law.
But
something
like
needs to be done about that.
Things like this, crimes like these, change laws. It's just a fact.
Well, that's why you have a legislature which you once served in, and I think it's libelous to say that Republicans don't have people's safety in mind. That's ridiculous. I think we can have disagreements over policy. By the way, that was House Bill 1105, which did pass, and I think if a sheriff and a jailer are refusing to hand over a violent criminal, to your point, Melinda,
that's not what the language says. I want you to be honest about this.
I am.
That's my problem. It's the lies.
I have read 1105. I know what it says. And I think if a jailer and a sheriff is delinquent and not turning over a violent criminal, illegal alien, then they are violating their oath of office. I don't care what you think.
All right, leave it there, folks. That was a nice debate. Thank you. Up next, it may soon be decision time for the judge deciding whether Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis and her former lover should remain on the 2020 election interference case.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Email them at georgiagang@foxtv.com.
A former law partner of Fulton County Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade was evasive on the witness stand this week. Lawyers pressed Terrence Bradley on details about a romantic relationship between Wade and District Attorney Fani Willis that has roiled the 2020 Georgia election case against former President Donald Trump. This week, attorney Ashley Merchant read aloud a text message in which she had asked Bradley if he thought Willis and Wade started dating before Willis hired Wade. Bradley replied, absolutely. That was in the text message. But he wasn't willing to go there on the witness stand. Alicia.
You know, I'm a fan of reality TV, and this has got to be the best reality TV I've seen in a long time.
I call it a soap opera.
I mean, every week there's a new development. Now we've got a witness who was basically gossiping in his text messages, and now he's on the stand and he can't back them up. And I think the most ironic thing for me is that here's a guy who has already been found liable of sex abuse. He's been indicted in 3 different jurisdictions, has a case trying to disqualify 2 consenting adults for having a relationship. Listen, I don't care if they were dating, if they've been married for 5 years. It still does not prove that there is a conflict. And I would argue that the defense, all of the 19 co-conspirators who are represented by these lawyers, they might need to find a new attorney, because I don't think they can defend them out of a wet paper bag at this point.
Phil, you and Alicia have it going on today.
That's right. All right, I'm ready for you, Alicia. You know, we're talking evidence. Now, I agree with you. It's a soap soap opera aspect here, but let's get beyond that. Those texts are evidence, and that's what we're looking for. And I get a kick out of this guy, Terrence Bradley, the attorney, who all of a sudden, after he texted like 4 or 5 weeks ago, he doesn't remember anything. I don't recall, I don't recall, I don't recall. You know, in my opinion, he's a serial liar. Boy, we're talking about serial liars here today on the show. I think that this just plays right into the hands of the team, the lawyers, Ashley Merchant, and all the lawyers for the Trump co-defendants and the former president himself. I think the judge has to take all of this into consideration. There's perjury here.
Judge McAfee has quite a decision ahead, Melita.
He does. The arguments begin at 1 p.m. Friday after the show is taped. The judge has already said that he will not rule from the bench, so he has a lot to think about. So that means this story drags on for another week, and the defendants have mostly been successful in their strategy to delay and divert attention away from all the charges facing those they represent, those people who were actually indicted by the Fulton County grand jury, because that's the trial we haven't gotten to yet.
All right.
One quick thing, okay? Poor Fonnie Willis, you know, I feel bad for her because she's on video saying you shouldn't have a relationship with somebody in your office, you shouldn't take money, and she actually shows taking money and putting it in her pocket. You shouldn't do that either. And it appears from her testimony of not answering the question she was asked, just like giving all this information, that she did all of those things. Now, does that recuse her or discount her? I don't know if it does. It sure loses trust and respect in somebody. And I tell you what, qualifying's next week. I sure hope she gets an opponent.
We'll see. Well, you know, it's not over even when the judge makes a decision, because you've got the Georgia Senate now weighing in, you've got ethics complaints, so we will be talking about this, Melita, for a while. But real quickly, crossover day at the Capitol Thursday, the day where most bills live or die if they don't cross at least one chamber. Things that you were looking for that made it or didn't make it, Martha?
You know, I thought it was a very uneventful crossover day because the big thing, school choice, had already been dealt with, gambling had already been dealt with, and actually did get a vote too, but it didn't have to. It actually got through there. So I thought it was a pretty easy day. The biggest surprise for me, though, was RFRA and where it came through.
That's what I want to talk about. Many folks were surprised, Alicia, to see a religious freedom bill gain such momentum and so quickly and made it out of the Senate.
I was surprised too, particularly because you had the Metro Atlanta Chamber of Commerce and other business entities, obviously civil rights groups who are opposed to it. Ed Tesler is a friend. I'm disappointed that he's still pushing for this issue, and hopefully it'll be stopped.
Phil?
Well, it's the Religious Freedom Act. That's what RFRA is about, and it's modeled on 43 other states that have it. It's modeled after a federal law that was signed by, of all people, President Bill Clinton. It's basically to protect religious freedom, and but I had a couple other surprises there too. I think the tax incentive cap, as I understood the bill, it didn't really affect the structure of it all, but I did write down something that said it at least limits the amount of credits that can be transferred. I thought that was a big thing that I took away from it. And then the certificate of need, we could go on and on. It was slightly modified, which, as we all know, health care is a big issue. We've got to keep an eye on that one.
Melita, you can weigh in on RFRA, because you remember Governor Nathan Deal did not sign that bill into law.
Well, and the thing that's different between the RFRA bill that's in law in many states and Georgia is that we don't have an anti-discrimination law in this state. Senator Kim Jackson, who is the only LGBTQ member of the state Senate, she is also an ordained Episcopal priest, gave a very moving argument against this bill. It's highly recommended viewing, especially if our viewers are skipping church. Her argument against that bill was much better than any sermon and a lot shorter. But I also was disappointed not to see the bill which would have limited mining permits near the Okefenokee Pass. And most Democrats are disappointed that nothing happened on expanding Medicaid or the protections for IVF services in Georgia, which arose after the court decision in neighboring Alabama.
All right. Anybody else? We're good?
Yeah. Medicaid expansion was a disappointment for me. I was hopeful because of the deal that they were talking about at the beginning of session. So I really was hoping that there would be some bipartisan collaboration and seeing that we covered uninsured people in Georgia. So that was a disappointment.
I got a quick one, and you've heard me say this before on the show, but there's a bill by Senator Brandon Beach that would ban the purchase of any farmland in Georgia by the Communist Chinese. And for some reason, it's being held up in the House. That we need to talk to Representative Lauren McDonald and find out. Let's pull that out of there and get it passed.
That was something that Stacey Abrams brought up on the campaign trail when she was running for governor. So
That's right.
Could be some bipartisan support there. All right, coming up, the city of Atlanta cracks down on homeless encampments. We'll discuss next.
Join the discussion on the Georgia Gang Facebook page and watch past episodes on the Georgia Gang YouTube channel.
Atlanta is cracking down on homeless camps. This week, the city sent out police to clear out an encampment under the Cheshire Bridge between Buford Highway and I-85 after several fires burned out of control. The people who lived at the makeshift campsite are being moved temporarily to the old athletic club and what used to be Atlanta Medical Center. Martha.
Yeah, I think it's the right thing to do. I mean, this is an ongoing issue, and there are many layers to this issue, of course, but you can't have fires starting. We all remember, the fire that happened underneath the bridge during session a few years ago, and we don't need that happening. So I think it's the right thing to do, and I think with, while this, I think, was outside of the city of Atlanta, it may have been inside the city of Atlanta with elections coming up next year for mayor, it's an important thing to do.
All right, I want to move on. Staying in the city of Atlanta, the Racetrack gas station on Piedmont Avenue in downtown Atlanta near the campus of Georgia State is closing its doors for good after a man was shot and killed. Now, Racetrack CEO said the decision to close the store was one about safety and financial impact, saying she was deeply saddened by the recent acts of senseless violence. Alicia.
Yeah, as a business owner, I can't say that I disagree or don't understand why they're making this decision. You can only imagine how expensive it is in terms of insurance, right? And you're always thinking about the safety of your employees. What was most sad to me about the situation, in addition to, of course, a business leaving a community, is hearing the students say that they've gotten used to gunshots and gun violence. That's a really, really big problem. And I'll just say, and I mean this, that I hope that there's this political involvement and sense of urgency that we've seen with other issues. A young man lost his life. There was another that was killed before that. We've got to see some action on gun violence. We've got to see, even there was a stabbing in a Gwinnett County school the other day. Kids need to be safe. Young people need to be safe. And I want to see this same sense of urgency on these kinds of issues as we've seen in Athens.
Well, I can agree with you on that one, and it is a sad commentary. It's a sad commentary especially on former Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, who broke the Atlanta Police Department. It's understaffed, and there was a sense of lawlessness that came out with the gangs. Some of this, sadly, is not just guns, but it's also gang violence, too. And I'm hoping when we can clean up, and I'm trying to give Mayor Andre Dickens a lot of credit here. I think he's rebuilding the police department. We've got a good police chief. If we can get back to crime fighting, maybe Racetrack and these other businesses will feel a lot better.
And one more topic to get to. First Lady Jill Biden in Atlanta Friday to launch the Women for Biden-Harris initiative, the first of many stops, Melita, in key battleground states.
And I believe it showcases the fact that we are indeed yet again a battleground state, and there will be plenty of national attention on the races. And it's already been mentioned that next week is qualifying, and we're seeing on our side of the aisle at least a lot of women who are running this time because they believe saving democracy and the preservation of reproductive freedom is worth their getting on the campaign trail and asking their neighbors for a vote.
All right, we'll leave it there, folks. Thanks. Coming up, winners and losers. Stay tuned.
Time now for the week's winners and losers.
All right, Martha, we'll start with you.
Well, my winner this week is the Dahlonega Literary Festival. Some old friends of ours were there, John Pruitt and Steve Oney. It was a fantastic day, and they had a great day. But also, my losers got to be people that call themselves sanctuary cities. When did it become okay to say you're only following some laws or another? So we got to fix that.
All right, Alicia.
Usually I don't have losers because I'm an optimist, but I do have one today, and I have a winner as well. My losers are the anti-immigrant, anti-police, anti-democracy, anti-women, anti-police, book banning, politics peddling spirit that has taken over the Republican Party. I miss folks like Johnny Isakson and Sam Olens, and the list goes on of reasonable Republicans that we could work with and get work done. I want to make Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones my winner, one of my winners, for his support for HBCUs. If you are not aware, HBCUs are responsible for half of the nation's black teachers, 85% of black doctors, 80% of black federal judges, 75% of black vets, 75% of black military officers. And so the fact that he has done this tour, he knows how important they are, and he's starting to make some investments are important. Lastly, real quick, Sheriff Craig Owens of Cobb County. His office won the Triple Crown Award, which is a prestigious award, and only 5 sheriff's offices in Georgia have ever received this award, and only 100 across the nation. So kudos to Sheriff Owens and to all the men and women of the Cobb County Sheriff's Office.
Congrats, Phil.
Well, I'm going to make one of my company's wings, the polling aspect of Insider Advantage, a winner, and that's Matt Towery, who, as we know, used to poll for Fox 5 for many, many years. He hit that South Carolina primary right. Trump wiped out Nikki Haley with 60-40, and it's very difficult to poll. And also, I think that my winner is going to be a gentleman by the name of Brian Jack. There's a 3rd U.S. congressional district opening since Drew Ferguson is retiring. He's going to jump in. I think this week I'm looking in the crystal ball, and I think he's going to be a winner. He's backed by President Trump, who he used to work for.
All right, Melita.
Senator Gloria Butler has served for 26 years in the state Senate. She announced that she's retiring this week. She served as minority leader, the first black woman to serve as minority leader in that chamber for the past 4 years. She's a woman of great integrity. She has a very regal presence and very well respected.
Congratulations to her. Have a great week, everyone.